Galen,
Oni.
tell me. The people must know. What are some of your inspirations? Who are some of your video game fashion goals?
My fashion goals.
Yes. So who is a video game character that is your ideal fashion?
Oh, jeez. I have no idea where to even start on that one.
Okay, well, don't start off boring.
Anybody who wears like a Western style duster, like in video games, I
That's
often
really embarrassing, Galen.
What? I will be completely honest. When I'm playing a fantasy game of any type, that is the kind of aesthetic that I like lean towards.
Okay.
Okay, how about you? What are some of yours?
No, we're gonna live in this a little bit. So, like, who? Like, is there a character that you're like, oh, this guy is cool, and I like cool guys?
Okay, minus the cowboy hat. What was his name? Irving from Final Fantasy VIII?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, that's cool. I like that. I can see myself wearing that.
Okay.
Just not the cowboy hat.
Do you not look good in hats, Galen?
Oh, you know the answer to this. My struggle with hats has been decades long.
Now, is that because your head is too big or your head is too small?
I have a very big head. Take that as you will.
I do not.
I have a very big head, but very tiny eyes.
Ah, that is the.
It's true.
Yeah, that's the, what's it called? Proportion. That's a disproportionate proportions.
Yeah. So if I wear like a big hat to go with my big head, I've got these tiny eyes and it just looks like I've got this weird baby face thing going. But if I wear a tiny hat with my big head, then I look like, I don't know. I look like a
I hate
pumpkin.
carrots, but I love carrot soup. And I love peas, but I hate pea soup.
Yes. Actually, I don't remember the last time I had pea soup.
Well, good thing we didn't ask that question, because it sucks.
Hey, at least I answered the question that was asked to me.
And then some. Go on, Galen, give us nothing.
Okay, go on and give us the answer that I had asked you. Wait, the question.
See? Hello, my lovely summertime fireworks, my Hanabi, if you will. Friends, thank you for joining us today on the Nintendo Everything Podcast, episode 91. My name is Oni Dino, and with me, I have a game-breaking glitch. Everyone tries to avoid him. It's Galen.
You know, if you do talk to me, the sixth thing that you're holding does duplicate.
You sound like a bad glitch.
Now you have
Or maybe
to
you're
decide.
a good glitch.
I'm a good. I am Galen, the good glitch.
Yes.
Download your Ruby Slippers DLC.
Galen can't wear them, but he is wearing a dress.
I have very large feet.
Very wide feet, wouldn't
Very
you
wide
say?
feet too.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, barely a human being.
actually, no. We're on the topic of feet now. Can we talk about a weird feet thing?
We are not on the topic of feet. This podcast will get removed from whatever it's on. Okay,
'Cause
except for Quentin Tarantino's personal library.
No,
We
hair
are
on my feet
not.
whatsoever.
We are not on the topic of feet. Moving on.
How do you recover for this? Come on.
Yeah. Moving forward, we are a weekly show. Episodes
Putting
go live
our
every
best
Sunday.
foot forward.
Oh, shut up. We are a weekly show, blah, blah, blah. Find us on the podcast platforms. I swear to God, I will put us on SoundCloud sometime soon. Just been a little bit busy this week in particular, and a little bit more into next week. But whatever. Leave us a rating on iTunes. That is the best way to support our podcast. It gets us recommended through algorithms. Share us on a Discord you like. What else, Galen?
we're also on the YouTube, and if you happen to consume your media that way, you can always catch us there. But you are very anti-YouTube, so I didn't bring it up. That's how I honestly listen to it the most.
That's because you suck, bro. Like, listen to us on a podcast platform. As soon as you start doing it, it's so much better. There's literally no benefit to YouTube.
Other than I can have it on in the background on the same tab that I had up.
You can do that with literally any podcast platform as well.
But I like to condense all of my stuff into one place. Plus, I get to see your very cool thumbnails.
They're not very good at all. My thumbnails suck, dude. This is the Adventure Log, where we talk about what we played this week. You can find us on the socials, the super social, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Let's chat about video games on my Twitter at Oni_Dino. And Galen?
You can find my video game related tweets at Mobius087.
Make fun of him for it.
Hey, I've been rather productive on Twitter this week.
Have you?
I have. I posted some podcast Twitter stuff.
I didn't know you listened to podcasts.
Yeah, I posted the 2 polls about this segment specifically, getting a little bit of opinion on what the listeners really wanted to hear. And I took that information and mostly ignored it with my recommendation this week. So yeah.
So this week I got in just the briefest amount of time with Trails of Cold Steel 3. Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. That's the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people on Twitter have asked me about this game because a lot of our listeners know that, like, I'm into JRPGs, all that junk. So they are like, hey, this new game came to Switch. Should I get into this series? This is a good point to get into it and everything. And I am in the same boat as you. I really don't know about this series very much, so let's go on this voyage together. That's what I say.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
I only recently heard about this series. It's apparently a very long-running series, like years and years and years long. I only recently kind of knew about it because I became acquainted with the translators for this game.
Yeah.
So then when I heard it was coming to Switch, I was like, okay, cool, I'll play it on Switch. So far, this is the only game that is on Switch, the third entry of the Cold Steel series.
Yeah.
The fourth one is coming, and I have a feeling that we'll at some point see 1 and 2.
And I did a little bit. I had to look up this game when you told me that you were going to play it this week. So apparently this is the third game in the Trails of Cold Steel series, which is a subset of the Trails series, which is a subset of the Legend of Heroes series. Like, there's a lot of brackets that kind of like rain down on this from what I'm seeing.
Absolutely, yeah. So from my understanding, because I really didn't know much about it, the entire thing shares a universe, a world. Things are happening in these series that affect the other series sort of indirectly, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But then the specific series, so like the Cold Steel series, is directly interlinked. And the big appeal of this series is also sort of the downfall for new people. It's that it's a very character-driven and narrative-driven series, and that can be so hard to just jump into because it's like, okay, it's like a TV show in more ways than one. It's like a long-running anime TV show or something like that where you're just like, can I jump in at season 3? Like, should I go back and watch from season 1 to see, like, and do I have to commit to all these seasons? Like, what's the filler? What, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to start parsing through this. This is my first impressions with this big ass series, and I'm pretty excited to keep going into it though.
Yeah, okay.
So what is this game? What is the Cold Steel series in particular? Trails of Cold Steel. This is anime AF. It is.
It looks like it.
It's super anime looking. The names are very German inspired. Your main guy that you play as is Rien Schweitzer. Schweitzer, I think. It has kind of like a, I don't know really what to say about this because I'm not like super into anime. Despite the kinds of anime games that I play, I'm not super into anime itself. I just kind of don't watch it. I just don't really care for TV shows in general, to the really long episodic things. It has a bit of a classic anime feeling, I guess. I don't know.
Is it classic anime, or is it more of reliance on the tropes that have been around for a couple of years now?
I am not equipped to answer that just yet. And so far, it's not super tropey or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. But the story is very heavily involved in politics, warring factions. You play as, again, Rien Schwarzer. He is becoming an instructor at the military academy that he graduated from in the previous games. And everyone in this military academy is either a misfit or underperforming or just doesn't fit in somehow to other schools. And that goes as well for the instructors and the principal too. So it's a good setup, and it's a great premise to feel like this has some personality, and you want to get to know these characters that you're meeting. In terms of the world building and all of the characters that you have met in previous games, if you're like me and you're jumping in at number 3, there is a fantastic encyclopedia feature on the title screen. It's called Backstory, and then you can go into basically proper nouns, characters, concepts, what happened throughout the story of the games before it. And that's great. It's super, super great. It's sort of presented in a little bit of a bare bones way, though. It's just a bunch of text that you read, and then occasionally a character portrait will slide in. I wish that they had done a little bit more with that. Yeah. But I think that if you're into these games, or if you're going to be into these games, you're going to be into reading in the first place. This is full of text. There's so much text in these games. It's not about exploring a world physically so much as it is about learning these characters and chatting with them.
When you are reading these backstories, were just with those small synopses, synopses,
I believe.
Was it engaging enough to you as someone coming into the story kind of fresh?
It's written very matter of fact. It's honestly, all of the writing so far in the opening of the game and in the encyclopedia has been efficient. It's like a tackle box of information. It's very efficiently placed, and everything has its reason that it's there. Okay. So that's great. It's not wordy by any means, but it is a little bit dry. So, which is fine. I mean, I think that that's kind of what you want. You want just the facts, ma'am. Well, that's a great old joke. So I don't have complaints there, but you do have to sort of push yourself through it. I wish that this game had a feature where you could read a bit of the encyclopedia, play a bit of the game, then jump back to the encyclopedia. And other than saving your game and going back to the title screen, so far I have not found something that convenient. So it'd be cool if that is on the internet or something, which I'm sure it is, and you can pull it up on their website maybe, so you can pull it up on your smartphone, so you can be playing the game and then be oh yeah, what is the name of this kingdom again, or this class, what is this class, or what happened before, and you can pick it up and read it.
It's very interesting to me that they did that in a setting where you have to go to the title screen in order to fall back on that info. A lot of the narrative series games that I have played, The Witcher, Mass Effect, games like that, they do a similar thing where if you are coming into the game for the first time, they will give you all of that background, but they always do it in a menu in the game, something that you can pull up on the fly. So it's very interesting.
And maybe they will do that, or maybe they are doing that. I just haven't found it yet. I'm very early in this game. That's something I'll get into later, but when you are picking up this game and starting to play it, I highly recommend having a good 2 hours to sit down and play it, because it's very slow opening. I don't know if I want to say slow, but it's just everything is linked. Everything is methodical. There's tons of dialogue, tons of voiced content. I was playing it for a couple of hours, and I fell asleep last night.
Oh no.
During, a cutscene where they've been talking, and there's an auto feature, so you don't have to skip through it. I fell asleep.
Nice.
I woke back up. It was still happening.
And everything was on fire.
No. Not everything was on fire. Like, they were still talking. Like, there was still stuff happening. Like, it really feels like you are watching a TV show. Like, this is a great example of a game that doesn't operate with you, the player, entirely like a video game. This has elements of like watching a TV show and reading a book into also playing a video game. So I think that if you're somebody that is really into those things, and you'll know if you are, it's definitely a niche audience.
Yeah.
This is for you.
Okay, neat.
Yeah. So anyway, getting on into the visuals and the presentation. When I first started playing, I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. This is, remastered, updated from the Vita version, the original Vita version. Until I realized that there was no Vita version. This is only on the PC, the PS4, and the Switch. And I was like, why does it look like this? It's kind of drab looking. It feels very last gen PS3, which, I'm not a graphics whore. I don't mind that, but in terms of visual design, I need something there. So, and I really like environments in video games, and the environments so far have been very rudimentary. Very just color palette wise, gray, brown, drab, not a whole lot of exciting things with a bunch of character are in there. I did arrive at a town, and the town, does have charm to it, but I don't know, holding judgment on that.
Okay.
So the reason though that I think, or that I had that feeling of like it was a Vita game originally, is because they have used the same engine since the past couple games, and those games were on PS3 and Vita. So even though these newer games are on newer and much more capable hardware, they just kind of kept going with that. So that's a detriment, I think, but we'll see. I'm still so early on into the game. All I've seen is a military academy, really.
Okay.
And that's not really going to be too exciting anyway, so we'll see. I'm not expecting a whole bunch of bespoke environmental design, like walking into a person's bedroom and then seeing stuff around their bedroom that relates to what their personality is or whatever. Not expecting that. I would love that, but
As, other military teacher simulators have shown in the past.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up, because Fire Emblem Three Houses is a great example of a game that also has very rudimentary objects and environments, but they still were able to do bespoke environmental design where you walk into Lindhart's room and he's got an extra comforter on his bed because he likes sleeping so much, and he's got tons of books. You go into Claude's room and it's completely disheveled, and so on and so forth. You go into Leonie's room and she's got a bunch of yarn and patchwork stuff because she grew up being a not a ruffian, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, environmental design, I like that very much.
I will admit, when when you told me you were playing this game, I watched the trailer that Nintendo had put out for it.
Yeah.
And the entire time I was watching the trailer, I was like, this is just Fire Emblem.
I really don't think so though. Maybe on paper where you're oh, you're an instructor and blah blah, that's very similar. However, this game doesn't play out like that at all. I think that it does appeal though to the Fire Emblem crowd because there's a lot of overlap. But on that topic though, in terms of character design, so I really liked a lot of the character designs for Three Houses. I'm sorry, the comparison's just going to come up.
Yeah.
This game's character designs are just okay. They're very anime and they're very boilerplate. You could easily see this being a bunch of presets in a character creator or something like that.
Yeah.
The character models are very good. They're well detailed, and they have a lot going on. Sometimes they have a strap hanging off of their clothes and it's flowing a little bit. So, environment's not so great. Character models looking good.
Good.
But I don't think that you play this game for the visuals. So
yeah.
the main appeals here are the writing, the world building, and also the combat system.
Okay. I'm interested to hear about this.
I know very little about it so far because of the way that the game is paced in the beginning. It's a turn-based combat system. It seems to be like Grandia with more and more systems on top of it.
Mhm.
So I'm like, hell yes, I can deal with lots of systems. I like Xenoblade games. I love Grandia and, like area of effect based attacks.
For people who are listening who may not know what Grandia is, it's mainly referring to a combat system where it's more based on the turn order that your characters are going, and their speed has an effect in the battle itself, where you can sometimes stagger the opponents to knock them down in the turn order. Is this kind of a similar concept, or
sort of? What I was more referring to with Grandia is that like you move your characters around the battlefield, and it's like based on like, so if an enemy is going to do an attack that's like a long pillar area of effect, you want to move your characters out of that range, so then they won't be hit by it. And same thing with your attacks. You want to group your enemies together or try and stand in an advantageous spot to hit them. So there's a lot of strategy to it, and there's definitely a bunch more things that I have not learned yet because going into the beginning of the game is weird.
Yeah.
Just before I say that, though, I do also want to highlight the awesome animations. I love crazy, flamboyant, anime-ass animations in my attacks. And this game has that in spades when you choose like a special attack.
Awesome.
Yeah. But so when you start off the game, you have a full party, you walk through an environment, you have several enemy encounters, and there is an overwhelming amount of information during battle. I'm like, it's not super readable for a brand new person.
It seemed like a very messy UI.
I have a feeling it is not a messy. Well, I have a feeling that everything in that UI has a reason for being there. For a brand new person coming to this, even people who are experienced in JRPGs, I think it does look like a hard to read.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. So I'm looking forward to getting a tutorial on this and reading it. But that first part, it's like a pre-prologue. It's not even the prologue. It's not a tutorial at all. Like they just throw you in there and you have everything. And I was like, wow, I'm not learning anything from this. And so I was worried when that happened. I was like, oh no, like, is the game expecting that I know everything, even including the battle mechanics from the previous games? So I was super worried when it started. But you go through a couple battles, you do like a sort of boss fight, and then a thing happens and it says 3 months earlier. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a smart storytelling contrivance where, you know where you're going to be going in 3 months. Yeah. From a gameplay perspective for a brand new person, couldn't help but feeling like I was missing out. So I'm sure that they're going to introduce these battle things, battle mechanics to me. But that was definitely a rough first impression.
So was this a rough enough impression for you that it's like deterring you from wanting to continue playing more? Or
No.
are you more interested in like, okay, where is this going?
Yeah, I am interested in where it's going. The only reason that I highlighted that is because I could see somebody starting that up and being like, not for me. You know what I mean? So I just want to warn people about that because that's not where the game really starts you off at. I feel like that is something for that is a reward for the fans of the series, which is fine. Like, this is a niche-ass series and it's playing into its fans, which is what you want to do. You want to reward them.
Yeah.
For the newbies like us, we just gotta put in a little extra effort, I think. But it seems quite rewarding. This wouldn't be a huge series if it weren't such a good series. And I have heard so many good things. Like, almost unanimously, I hear good things about this series, the characters and the writing. It's why it's intrigued me. I just hear about it so much in passing. Everyone's like, oh, it's so good. Oh my God. And I'm like, cool. I love good stories. Get me in there. And getting in there, I think, is a little bit tough, but I don't know. I'm jumping in at number 3, so I'll have more impressions next week.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear it.
But Galen, that is not all. You have finally played a video, James. Tell me
I have played
a little bit.
video game Game.
Tell me a little bit about 3000th Duel.
This is actually a game that was recommended to me on Twitter by at SaltyFET, or I think his handle is now Tom. So Tom,
don't say his full name. I mean, I guess
it's what it says on the thing.
just say the first name. I'm editing out that other thing. Look at Galen giving me work to do.
All right, Tom.
Also, what up, Tom?
Yeah, thanks for letting me know about this one. All right, so 3000th Duel it's an interesting one. So the best that I can describe this game as is a weird off-child between Neatopia, Castlevania, and Dark Souls.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is a weird one for me.
Except for the Dark Souls comparison, because everything is Dark Souls. I like those other two things.
And it's light, but I'll get into that in a second. Okay. So
this conversation is kind of like Dark Souls.
Light the bonfires. Now, this is a game that was published and developed by a company called Neo Popcorn, which I've never heard of before. Game is relatively new. I think it came out like September of last year, so Pretty fresh. The Metopia aspects of it, the animation and the cartoons or the characters themselves are very disproportionate in a cartoonish way.
You mean like super deformed?
Not super deformed. Like, it definitely is like big head mode is on.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, super deformed is actually a term. Like, super deformed doesn't mean like, I'm a goblin. There's actually a term for that where it's like small body, big head, like a 2D aesthetic.
This is definitely on that one. But it also extends itself out to the monster characters as well. Like, it would remind me something of a character design or a monster design that you would see in like Dragon Quest, for example. Like with the skeleton monsters. Cute. Yeah, they're more on the cute side from what I've seen. Even the more menacing ones, like the first monster boss that you come across is this gigantic mace-wielding skeleton that has like tattered clothes and really thick bones and like rib cages. But it's something that you would see in like a Disney cartoon or something. It's very off-putting.
Off-putting sounds like my style.
It's a little off-putting because of the her Dark Souls-esque description that I used.
Uh-huh.
There's a very kind of like dark gothic overtone that is in the background and the colors that they decide to use. And there's also this element where if you die in the game,
You die for real.
Yeah. The experience points, which they call karma, that you can use for leveling up, all go away. But if you go back to that previous spot, you can unlock it. Same thing like Hollow Knight.
So it's a corpse run kind of thing?
Yeah, it's definitely like that.
And then I have a question though. When you lose your karma and then you go back and you get it again, do you get to meet the chameleon or does he come and go?
You should be shameless.
I am shameless. You're shameful.
I am full of all the shame.
Yeah. Like every shade of shame. Red, gold, and green.
It's so bad. It's so bad. But yeah, it's got a couple of elements like that, and it definitely also the game is entirely in a 2D side-scrolling perspective in the same vein as like a Castlevania. So there's a lot of exploration that you're going around. You're trying to find new paths. I haven't played the game enough to know if you unlock abilities to be able to return to various spots, but I do know that there are some abilities that you can unlock that will open up path progression. So, your double jumps, your stronger weapons, things like that.
Yeah. Do you know how long this is?
Not quite. I didn't look too much into the overall length of the game. But I will say that there are a few bit of unlockables. Mainly from what I've seen, there are different type of weapons and equipment that you can unlock. There is an RPG-esque element that goes to that as well. There are different weapon styles that you can go ahead and equip, as well as different magic, which they call occults. And beyond that, it's your action platformer-esque 2D side-scroller.
Gotcha.
And I think they know that they're going into kind of an oversaturated market, because I feel like they focused a lot on the showiness of the game itself. So,
what do you mean?
Well, for example, the text. The text is really, really weird, because normally when it comes up any sort of information or people talking, you would expect it would just pop up in a text box, or if they really want to be fancy, it would come up like above wherever the person's saying. It shows up in the middle of the screen, but instead of showing you the whole line, it starts with like a sparkle point that kind of exaggerates and expands out. So you read from the beginning of the line to the end. It's really weird, and you get little bits of information before you get the full sentence.
So, that's clearly a design decision, right?
I would assume, yeah, because it looks great, it looks flashy, but from a point of, okay, I want to know what's going on here, it's more flourish than substance. From what I'm personally taking.
It's not adding to the experience for you.
Correct, yes. Also, the story seems very vague, but they are definitely doing this on purpose, and they definitely want this to be a game where you are inclined to explore more.
I am so tired of that, honestly. Like, it can be really good storytelling to breadcrumb your player, but it is difficult to pull off accurately. I feel like a lot of people, and sorry, I'm not judging this game. I'm just like talking about it in general.
No, I'll judge this game for it.
Yeah, go ahead. I haven't played it.
Other games do it better.
I feel like so many people will imitate something that they see others doing without understanding why it is so effective and why it is so iconic for, a specific game series or something. Like, you can make a 2D platformer that's all about jumping and getting from point A to point B, like Super Mario Bros., but you can have a fundamental misunderstanding of the mechanics or level design. You know what I mean? Like, there's things there that people just kind of miss out on.
No, absolutely.
Anyway, go on, sorry.
Well, the story itself is you literally wake up after being brought back from the dead, but you're told, yeah, hey, your past life, don't worry about it. Like, don't look into it at all. And this literal...
You think that'll come right back around, though, in the end?
Oh, probably. Like, I would not be surprised if you are some, forlorn prince who, died trying to protect their kingdom or something, or some result of a magic curse. Like, I'm seeing the story bits that are being breadcrumbed out, and it's stories that I've already seen before. So I'm already coming to a couple of conclusions based on what I've seen in the past.
Yeah.
In fact, when you beat that first boss that I was just talking about, and this is the first time, this guy is huge. Like, he is easily about 3 times the size of your character. He fills up the screen.
That's Dark Soulsy.
When you beat him, go to the next level, there is literally a tombstone that says, here lies this knight who was dedicated to the kingdom but gave his last ounce of service in disgrace because of some decision. And they leave it vague, but it's basically telling the backstory of who this character was and what he was all supposed to be. But it's leaving the puzzle piece of, okay, this is this character, this is what he means in the overall arcing story, but you have no idea what the overall arcing story is.
Okay, that makes
sense. So you
don't
have nearly the full context of who this character is that you just beat.
Gotcha.
But I feel like it's almost this sense of reverse psychology, and that's the theme that they are trying to go for of, no, you don't need to know about this. You don't need to know about this. Well, I want to know about this.
Yeah, right.
And it's a very played out trope in 2020, I feel.
This reminds me of when I was younger. I would go and eat Chinese food with my dad when I was young, and he, of course, wanted to make sure I was eating my vegetables and eating broccoli. So we would get like beef and broccoli, and he would be like, all right, I'm going to turn my head and I'm going to leave this broccoli right here. And if I see any of it gone, I'm going to be real mad. And so, like he'd reverse psychology you into eating it. What didn't work out for him, though, is that I loved broccoli and he didn't have to do that. Like, broccoli is one of my favorite vegetables ever.
Oh, that's funny.
So, Galen, you're sounding a little bit lukewarm on this. How is the experience going? Do you think you're going to keep playing, or?
I'm going to give it a little bit more of a try, because the gameplay, story and aesthetic designs set aside, if the gameplay is good, then it's going to keep me engaged. It's all right.
Yeah.
When they advertise this game, when you pick it up from the eShop, they say it's a platforming game that focuses on fast-moving combat, but I haven't really seen that all too much.
It's not very fast-moving? Is it like more deliberate, or?
It's... The best way I can describe it is the same way that I used to describe Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, where it's very precise with your movements, but there's a weight behind your character that just feels sluggish when you're trying to move around and do things.
Mm-hmm.
You're given a number of different ways to interact with the game. Like I said, you've got your magic, your attack. You also have a dash, which you have a stamina bar that you can go to. So I don't know if leveling up like your stamina aspect in the game will make your character faster, but I'm not ruling out that possibility. What I do find is a little strange is that the hitbox for making your attack seems very large. Like you are
generous?
Yeah, like you start off with a sword that is about the same size as your character, and you swing it in a wide arc. Like there were a bunch of times that I was on a moving platform and a flying enemy came at me. I didn't have to jump to attack it. I didn't have to aim up. I literally just had to attack, and he did this overarching swing, which is just your standard attack that almost doubled the size of your character as far as attacking forward.
Interesting. It sounds like it must be easy, and of course a fake gamer like yourself is playing this, so it must be not that challenging, huh?
I haven't really felt the challenge. I have died a couple of times, but that was just because I was learning the mechanics and, oh, hey, I'm in the middle of a boss fight now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Overall impressions, I'd say that this game seems fine, but it's hard to get invested into this early on.
But just fine, how much is it for just fine,
Well, I got the game when it was on sale, so...
Cool, how much?
$9, $8.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Yeah, I think regular price it goes for about $15, so...
Well, that's not bad either.
No, it's a good, solid game, and I would put this game into the category of if you like the style of game and you're looking for something to kind of fill that void for you, this isn't going to be game of the year in any sense, but it definitely fulfills that niche that you're looking for.
That Metroidvania desire?
But my overall impressions of the game is that I feel like they focused more on how the game looks more than how the game feels and plays.
Ah.
So...
That's an issue for me.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it a little bit more of a try, but I'm not going to put too much effort into it.
Gotcha.
So.
But it comes highly recommended from Tom, or what? Did he like it, or?
I believe when he recommended it before, it was a game that was... This was a recommendation from a couple months ago, so I think this was a, hey, you should check this out. This game is just coming out soon. And
it took you that long to respond to one of our most dedicated listeners.
Hey, I played it. Chocobo's Dungeon is next.
Jesus. So how about we read some news?
I got nothing for that one.
Very funny.
Well, you're good at reading. Hi-yo.
Galen just snapped and can't do
No.
The neck thing. He can't at all. So all he did is move his entire body left and right, like he was on a sinking ship. The sinking ship is this podcast, and you've put a hole in it. So check out our website, nintendoeverything.com, for 24/7 news. News such as this PSA I'm about to tell you all about. I was a little bit behind on this, I'm sorry. Paper Mario the Origami King has a glitch in it. A glitch that is game breaking, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. This is in, I want to say, World 4? Like the middle of World 4? Where you go to a spa. I think it's called the Shangri Spa. Like Shangri-La.
Shangri Spa, yep.
Yeah. And I haven't gotten to that part in the game myself. So, I have another thing to say, but let's keep on this. But anyway, just for the sake of, keeping it vague but informative, when you get to this area in World 4, you are at a spa, you are given a VIP card, and then you do something where that card gets taken away from you, and you have to enter into an area or something. If you end up going outside of that area without that card, then you can get locked out of the game, and you end up getting, the game auto-saves at certain parts, and there's only one save file, so there's not a auto-save file, then separate save states or something like that. So yeah, it can potentially lock you out of progression, and the only way to progress is to delete your save file and not do that again. So just be forewarned, when you get to Shangri Spa and there's a VIP card situation happening, either look up in more detail or just continue with the story and don't leave.
Yeah, well, and I will say that Nintendo has acknowledged this glitch.
Yeah,
and they made mention of they're going to try to patch it with the next patch that comes through.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that this fairly obvious and game-breaking glitch wasn't caught during bug testing, because otherwise my entire playthrough has been really smooth. I haven't found one glitch or anything. Of course, this is anecdotal, but it's just weird that something like this was overseen. So
yeah,
but it's cool. They are hey, we're gonna fix it, but just FYI for anybody who's in that area of the game yet, just be careful. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say is I'm very sorry about last week. I am very, very sorry. At least two of our lovely listeners, some of our most lovely listeners who are
You're
always
only
on
apologizing to two people.
No. Shut up. At least two have brought this to my attention, so that means that probably other people were affected as well. I really downplayed the spoilers that I gave out last week about chapter 2 to chapter 3 of Paper Mario. I didn't mean to downplay the spoilers. I was more talking about how it's surprising that I have to say spoilers for Paper Mario, because usually nothing really happens in that game that's all that exciting or whatever.
Yeah.
But the writing in this is so good that, certain characters have really good character arcs, and that one was one of them. And so some of the people listened ahead, even though I warned about spoilers, because they're yeah, okay, spoilers, whatever, he downplayed it. But then they were oh, I wish I hadn't listened to that. Yeah. And I'm really sorry. I'm going to be way more blunt about spoilers in the future, just to let everybody know. That's my fault. I always get I don't know, when people, I've just heard people being okay guys, here it is, spoilers, full force ahead, spoilers, I have to warn you about spoilers. And I always roll my eyes to that, because that's almost a satire of what podcasts do, or just nerdy people do, and warning people about spoilers, or I don't know, it just feels sometimes people, when they talk about spoilers, they are blowing smoke up their own ass, or just trying to make what they're about to say way more important than it really is, that kind of thing. But people do take spoiler warnings seriously with the magnitude of what's going to be talked about, so I'll be way more diligent about that in the future, and I'm very sorry to anybody that I ruined that moment for.
Yeah,
I will say that the writing is so freaking good that you will still enjoy that part, so I highly encourage you to still play through it.
Yeah. I will give you some credit that it is kind of hard in a podcast format to emphasize the importance of certain spoilers because sometimes it's hard to like click ahead or click to different areas or anything like that. I mean, you spoiled it for me, and there's no excuse for that.
You were not going to play this game. You were not going to play this game.
I might have when it went on sale. I'm actually super excited about this game.
You're full of shit, bro. I see your little pumpkin face right there. Your little pumpkin smile of you were just caught in a lie. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Galen, why don't you tell me, though, about a game that you have played, miraculously, about some updates and some data mines.
And this is like the only thing I've been playing. So Animal Crossing came out with their summer update number 2. So we've got a couple of new things that are coming around with this one. First big thing is the Fireworks Festival.
Right, sponsored by Katy Perry.
Yeah.
There's a joke from 4 years ago.
Longer than that.
Time moves so fast. We are ephemeral.
For those of you who don't know, the firework festivals are going to be happening every Sunday on the month of August. There's going to be some new items that they are coming out with. Party favors, bubble wands, sparklers. It's supposed to be a big festive type thing. Red, the fox who usually sells black market art, is going
stolen
to be there.
Art?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. When
Bullshit.
It's real.
Derivative.
And he's going to give a Red's raffle, which has unique prizes to it that you can possibly get. Also, you can customize the fireworks that explode in the air. They showed pictures of Isabelle and the Belle money bag and Tom Nook's. I am 100 expecting to see nothing but penises explode in the sky.
Oh, you can draw them?
Yes.
Oh,
you can
no.
upload images. It is going to be fantastic.
It's going to be just like the Japanese Penis Festival.
Right? We kind of knew that was coming around because they showcased the fireworks when they were talking about the next update.
Yeah.
What I didn't see coming, however, was the Dream Island implementation. That's not an actual word.
Struggle. Go ahead.
They are putting in something called Dream Islands.
They're implementing something called Dream Island.
Yes. Now, this is a format where you have to fall asleep in your home. I've tested this out. You can't fall asleep other places. But when you do that, you are given the option to go to somebody else's island. Very similar to the Dodo Code-esque thing that they've had in the game up until now. What's interesting about this is that that person does not need to be online. Now, yeah. So you can upload your own island, or you can enter in a dream address and be taken to somebody else's island who has uploaded theirs. With that said, anything that you do on the island will not affect the island. So if you tried to chop down a tree or ran over somebody's flowers or anything like that, there is no harm anymore of destroying another person's island, which I feel is Nintendo's way of getting around a lot of the limitations that they had set up for themselves with their pre-existing form.
Interesting. So, like, is this a completely welcome addition for people who've been playing the game since the beginning?
Absolutely. Because now, especially because you don't have to be online, you can go and visit other people's islands. You can have celebrities put up their island, because I know that Animal Crossing is big enough that there were tons of people who were like, hey, come check out my island, and like news interviews and things like that. I looked up and I saw, it was like, hey, here's an island that's specifically made to look like a bathhouse. Here's one that is a gigantic carnival. Here's one that is a Legend of Zelda-esque maze that you have to go through. And all you have to do is put in this dream address in order to go there. And there's no other limitations to that. So I think that's really, cool. And I'm very glad that they put this into the game. Now, with that being said, it is interesting that you cannot bring any items with you. Not even your fishing poles or your items that you use for traversing. So this is literally just to go around and check out what's on the island, not to spend time doing activities there.
Okay, so like if you just want to see what they've been making or what they've been doing, the aesthetics of it.
Correct. And it's important to note about the traversal items because if you don't have a ladder or you don't have a pole vault pole, you might not be able to access some islands if that's not made.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's weird. Then why would they limit certain items like that's just used for traversal?
I'm not quite sure. I wonder if they have a way of being able to differentiate those items between each other. So, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's just if you are wanting to upload an island and share your own stuff, make sure you have that in mind and not close off any areas that you will need one of those items to get to. With that also being said, I think you'll find this a little bit interesting. They have a new character. They have a new character that they introduced who is like your guide to this whole dream world. Her name is Luna. And at first, like,
is she a white cat? Please tell me she's a white cat. Or not a black cat.
And she is not. I would have also expected like a sheep or something, but no, she is an anteater, which I thought was a little weird, and didn't really kind of fit the whole dream aesthetic until I talked to my wife and she brought up the whole idea of the Japanese Baku.
Wait, why? Go ahead.
Well, an anteater, if they wanted to kind of go with the Baku, a creature that is associated to dreams primarily in Japanese folklore. I don't know the specifics of any of the legends or anything. I was actually just going to make reference to like Hypno because I've seen that aesthetic choice in other games.
Oh, okay.
Referencing
now
that
you
kind of
mention
thing.
It. Yeah.
Yeah. I've went ahead and uploaded my own dream address on Twitter. So if you guys want to check out my island, you can. Don't expect a lot.
Never expect very much with Galen.
Yeah. At the end of the update showcase that they had on there, they also showed that their next update is going to be coming in fall. It's going to be free. And they showed a giant pumpkin in there. So we can probably expect this coming around beginning of October or something.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Gourds. Time for gourds.
A lot of my friends are very excited for Halloween to come to Animal Crossing. Speaking of gourds, however, there have been some data mined updates.
Okay, fair warning. Spoilers. Toot toot.
Ninja, of course, is the one who's been doing a lot of the data mining, and I believe a lot of his work went into sites like Turnip Profit and the ways to predict the weather in the game based on your Animal Crossing seed code. But specifically, he's talking about some new items that are going to be coming to the game. Some things like gyroids, which are these little fossil-esque creatures that are kind of notorious in the game itself.
Yes, I remember you talking about this a little bit before, because when I hear gyroids, I think something awful and sexual.
I know you do, because it's you.
Human. I am a human. I insist.
But they also included a bunch of different types of food. Tomatoes, wheat, sugarcane, potatoes, as well as some cooking and some sewing DIY recipes in the game. So this is being led to believe that they are going to be implementing some sort of farming and additional like clothes crafting and sewing component into the game itself, which if that's true, I think it's fantastic. And I think that's just a natural progression to the creative evolution that we see in this game. So I'm very excited.
But that is for the fall.
Sorry, Mary just slipped me a note under the door. Oh, she's saying gyroids? No, heroes.
And lastly, there's not too much news this week. And you know what? That's fine. I'm tired. I'm busy. That's fine. There's, of course, way more leaks. Not leaks happening, but like the leaks have already happened. It's just that people are parsing through the code and everything and figuring out what's there.
The data. Yeah.
So probably my favorite thing that I saw this week is the Zelda beta dungeon and some of the beta enemies that we saw from a whole bunch of like promo videos from back in the day. So you get to see the little Octork guy. You get to see some new textures and stuff. That's always fun. If you're super into Zelda, check that out. It's on our website, of course.
Yeah. I love looking at some of the Animal Crossing stuff that they've been uncovering because it shows a lot of the characters that they had designs for that apparently they were planning. And this kind of goes a little bit more to what you were saying last week, where one of the reasons why companies don't want this kind of thing to come out is because they might use this information in future iterations of the game. For example, Blathers, the owl who usually runs the museum in the game, he was not in the original game itself, but his character sprites and designs were. They also found an unused character asset that they simply refer to as Cat 13.
Oh my god, that's my code name.
They also showcased that they had a couple of like human NPCs. So apparently at some point, So apparently at some point in the development process, they were thinking about putting actual people in there.
No.
Which I'm glad they decided against.
Yeah.
So.
They look awful too.
I also love that they had Gulliver in the game, where Gulliver is this seagull that usually is found washed up on the shores, and he's like a random event type character. But
I think I saw a picture of him on Twitter yesterday.
Yeah. There's a couple with usually like blood splatters that are like custom put onto the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, they have what they had him saved as is, I think, correct me if I'm mispronouncing this, but Dozaemon, which is translated loosely into drowned body.
That doesn't sound right. Where is it?
Dozaemon.
I don't know. I'd have to see the kanji on that. Dozaemon. Mitemimasu.
So I like that little aspect of humor that was in there. Also, I like some of the Super Mario World stuff. Like, they showed Mario with wings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of like that they went with the cape more, but I'm hoping that those wings might come back in a future iteration someday.
Probably not because of it being like a little too close to being like angelic or something.
I can see that.
So they probably, like, that clearly looks like the precursor to the Super Mario World cape.
Absolutely. Although I think they could definitely still use it. If they did a Mario game that you jumped around different, like, mythologies and you get like a Halo power-up.
The Assassin's Creed of Mario. But, you know, I was just talking about that, it made me
Mario is in a Ubisoft game, so...
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't feel like talking about Ubisoft right now at all. They're pretty gross, a lot of things that have come out about them recently.
Yeah.
They've been harboring and hiding sexual abuse and not taking it allegations serious for years. So that's gross. These wings, though, for Super Mario World, the Yoshi has wings in the final game. Like, he can get wings. So maybe they didn't want to do it to like a human character because of the angelic thing. Yeah.
This is all really cool stuff to see. So, not sure what to make of it past the initial reaction of, neat. But
that's what we come here for, Galen, for your incredibly deep commentary.
Hey, it's honest.
So I looked up Dozaemon, and it is like an old classic Japanese phrase, and it does mean like a drowned body or something like that. It's something that they used in the early 1700s.
And that is cool. I didn't know it had that history behind it, so...
Yeah, I'll look into it more, maybe. I don't know, I don't care that much. But that makes sense why I didn't understand what you said.
Gotcha.
So we got the full list on our website, nintendoeverything.com. Check that out if you want to stay up to date on what's happening with the leaks. I heard, though, a little bit of information through a tweet recently that some of the info that's coming out from the leaks also has personal information from, I don't know, some people that were involved in creating, this somehow.
That's problematic.
And so that's just really awful if people are knowingly circulating personal information for people. That is yet another aspect of why companies don't want stuff to get out that they have not completely approved of. That's super awful. I don't think that any of our listeners would have anything to do with that or, use personal information like that, but that's just something to be sort of aware of because there's so many different aspects to why, Nintendo would take down leaks, or there's also a little bit of kerfuffle right now that I don't know, I hardly pay attention to it. The Animal Crossing thing that you were talking about, Nintendo is taking down certain hacks or something like that using the Dream. I don't know.
Well, and yeah, I it's funny. I actually had that in my notes here too. So Nintendo is, while you cannot take any items into the islands or off of the Dream Islands, you can pick up items while you are there and collect them. These items can actually go in your list of collected items, which means you can order them going forward. So some people have been using that as a hack of, hey, come to my island, I've got all of these recipes, and you can literally just go down the list and pick them all up.
Okay.
But that kind of defeats the purpose and the spirit of what they're really wanting to do in the game. So Nintendo's been kind of cracking down on that a little bit.
Gotcha. And yet this game still doesn't support cloud saves, right?
No, it does. This is literally something that they just put into the game.
Oh, they just put cloud saves into the game?
Yes.
Okay, because, I thought I remembered from the beginning before it was released that it was a bit of a kerfuffle, that it was like, great, yet another online game that I would want to have my stuff saved into the cloud didn't have it. So initially it didn't have it, you're saying?
This is an update that they just kind of slid under the radar more than anything. But
slid it right in.
Before you even boot up your island itself, it gives you an option that if you want to, you can create a backup for your island and recover it. Now, once you do that, it deletes it entirely from the original system. So make sure you are wanting to. It's not going to be an easy way of switching between switches on what island you're using. It's really kind of a one-time thing.
Gotcha. That does it for the news that's worth talking about this week. Let's go over to additional DLC. Galen, what is this mysterious YouTube video that you're recommending?
Well, I've got a question for you beforehand. Do you like food?
You know I do.
How much do you know about food?
Listen, I know everything about food.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then.
Especially if it's about gourds.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
I hate this question. A hot dog is its own thing.
Yeah?
Yes.
That it might surprise you to know that it is. You know what? I'm not going to spoil that one for you. Here's another question. Where's the best place you can get fries from? The most bang for your buck when it comes to fries.
Bang for your buck? I don't know. I make that shit on my own. Potatoes are cheap.
Here's another question. If you are making a cake at home, do you need an egg?
No. You can make eggless cakes all the time. People in India do it constantly.
Then why in the pre-made cake mixes does it require you to add an egg?
You can substitute that with a bit of tofu, with some avocado, or your own flour mixture. They need a binding agent. That's what they really want.
But do you really?
Yes. Otherwise, depending on what your flour constitution is, you're asking me questions that I have answers for, and I think that you were trying to get gotchas out of me. Not going to happen, okay? Boom! Twist it again!
All of these questions are related to a new channel that just went up called Food Theory. And they basically answer a bunch of questions.
No!
They answer a bunch of questions that are common things related to food and deal with it in a very scientific method.
That's why you didn't put the name on there, because you knew I was going to shit on it immediately.
Exactly. And I'm really tired of you shitting on my stuff.
Yeah, I need to be nicer, but man, watch better stuff.
You've never watched any of these videos. This channel literally just came out.
No,
so
but it's
no
an
idea
offshoot.
what it's like.
It's an offshoot of the other channels that I am done with. I've been done with it years ago. But anyway, Galen recommends this one.
My wife is sending me a message under the door that just says he is the worst. So I'm going to move on. This is a losing battle.
Check out Food Theory on YouTube as recommended by Galen. No. See, here's the thing, is that our listeners know the kinds of stuff that we recommend. And so I think that listeners that are more akin to the things that you recommend a lot, especially because you recommended a lot of their stuff and their offshoots many times before, they'll know if they should check this out or not. So
exactly.
It is a good on-brand recommendation from you, Galen. Also, it should be noted that when Mary slid that note under the door that said, "He is the worst," she was definitely talking about not me.
I think you might be right.
You know. My recommendation is just a lovely little soundtrack. It's the soundtrack for the video game called Umurangi Generation. This is a game that's out on Steam now. It is going to come to the Nintendo Switch at some point. It's a really chill, like, sort of photography sim, but the big thing about this game, at least what I can tell, because I haven't played it because I have a really crappy PC. The big thing about this is its visual aesthetic and its music that goes along with it. It's the atmosphere and the vibe that you get from this game. It's, to oversimplify maybe, it's a bit of a low poly kind of look. Lots of very interesting color palettes chosen. Lots of music inspired by like PS1 games. Definitely some hip hop beats in there. The soundtrack is done by lovely, lovely little Dutch baby named Thor High Heels. I've recommended his junk on this stupid podcast a million times. Mm-hmm. Check it out. It's on Spotify. It's called Umurangi Generation Official Soundtrack.
Neat.
But that's just a soundtrack. You see, this feeling that I'm feeling, Galen, is I feel bad for being mean, but I'm not wrong. I know I'm not wrong about any of that. Our lovely listeners have so many things to say. We want to hear them. One of those things that they do and say is leave us an iTunes review, and that's amazing because it helps us get recommended through the algorithm gods. This week, we got a hot and fresh one.
Mm-hmm.
The Remix to Ignition Hot and Fresh out the kitchen. It's a new review left to us by a lovely listener called Ike a Bird. He left us a 5-star iTunes rating and left this comment. You can be like him too.
Yeah.
Ike says, this podcast is great for human beings. Being a human being, I also think that this is a great podcast for human beings. Ike says, this podcast is for you if you like Nintendo products but aren't a blind, loyal cult follower.
We check that box.
You like all types of people.
Check that box.
Well, except for Galen. You like people that are like unicorns. Unique, pure, rare, or may or may not have healing properties.
I check that box.
I'm more of a vampire. I get my healing from other people.
You need the yin and the yang to that. So.
Mm-hmm. And you need speaking lessons. Let me know. I think there's a 2-for-1 discount because I could go into that class too, Galen. I'll tell you what.
I skipped that warm-up beforehand.
Oh, yeah. Every week. Moving on. Continuing with Ike's thing. He says, you aren't interested in 2 hours of industry speculation and rumor roundups. That's true. It's the same conversation over and over again, you know? That's why I also make sure that we don't talk about, like, who should be in Smash? Because it's the same conversation every time, you know? If there's a little bit of something to talk about, we'll explore it, but,
yeah.
Ike goes on, you like brutally honest relationships.
Mm-hmm. You check that box.
Well, that's simply not true. You would like accurate translations of Japanese quotes from around the industry. Thank you, Ike. Thank you. And if anybody has like some stuff that they like are like, wait, does this really say this or whatever? Like, go ahead and send it to me. If I can get to it, I'll get to it.
I believe the proper response you should have said was arigatou gozaimasu.
Arigato. And Ike finishes up by saying, bonus if you are in your 30s, but if you aren't, you may still learn about weird things people were into at the turn of the century. Ike, thank you so much for that. Okay, Galen's got something to say. What? This brutally honest relationship.
No, that's spot on.
Ike, thank you so much for this glowing review, for giving us a 5-star rating. It is the best way that you can support our show, so we super, super appreciate it every time that we see a new review. We're going to be reading out any written reviews that you guys leave us on iTunes. I just go through all the different countries that we have major listeners in. I can go through the smaller ones too. So just leave your review in your country of choice. It's not your choice, but your country you live in. I don't know, maybe it's your choice.
No, you have a choice of what country you live in.
You're not, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're born in a country and you're just like, why? And then moving on, if you have an email for us, a topic of discussion you want us to yell at each other about, talk kindly to each other about, or a question, or you want to know a little more insights about some of the backstory, some of the Galen lore, the gay lore. I didn't even realize that until I said it out loud. Hey, we both got gay lore to share. It's just two totally different meanings. You can send us an email to nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
Share us your meanings at nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
I want to hear about your gay lore.
It's listener mail.
Galen is like standing in front of a crowd, naked, uncomfortable right now.
This has been a weird one for me today.
Why? What is wrong? What's happening to you?
I don't know.
The mental deterioration, that's my shtick.
Yeah. Maybe it's the Oni Dino.
Do you have coronavirus?
I do not. I feel like I have to say that like every episode.
You really should. I'm actually worried about you. But you know who I'm not worried about? Who doesn't have coronavirus, because I know he's got a solid head on his shoulders, is our buddy Kazuo.
Hey, Kazuo, how's it going?
Yahoo.
So, this week he writes in, hey, I've been enjoying and keeping up with the podcast, but it's been a while since I sent the last email.
Thank you.
I am going to paraphrase a little bit of your email, Kazuo. Love that you have been reignited and looking into Live Alive from our previous episode looking into it. He does also say, I'd like to throw in my own thoughts regarding digital versus physical. I think I am similar to Oni, where I don't usually mind and sometimes prefer digital. As a Fire Emblem fan, I always get the game physically though, and special editions can tempt me to go physical too if I enjoy the series. So, I recently went back and tried Resident Evil 7 Cloud version on the Switch, which, fun story, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Well, that's a fake gamer for you right there.
Apparently from what I know, it's only in Japan, so... And I've been wondering about the potential of cloud games on the Switch. My experience with them is limited, and I haven't tried Stadia at all, but I think it's a decent opportunity for some PS4, Xbox One, as well as next-gen system games to come to the Switch. With Resident Evil 7, I did try it out in Japan 2 years ago. It didn't have a good internet connection, so unfortunately the lag made it a bit difficult to work with, which from what I understand is also kind of a common thing.
Yeah, I think that's still a problem with Stadia. Even if you have a
Yeah.
wired connection and stuff like that, there's still, like, especially with, well, we'll talk about it. Continue.
Yeah. We do have some games that were ported to the Switch with some amazing efforts like The Witcher 3, Doom, Rocket League, and etc. And they also have some advantages with not requiring an internet connection, but in some cases the difference is certainly noticeable, and I wondered how a cloud version would fare. With all of that said, what do you think about cloud games on the Switch and their potential? Thanks a lot, Cosmo. This is an interesting one.
Thank you, Cosmo. This is a great topic for discussion.
Mm-hmm. So,
moving on.
Oni.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack here, right?
Absolutely.
Cloud gaming in general, right? Where are we with that at this moment in time? I don't think that cloud gaming is super viable just yet. I think it's getting there. I think that even though Stadia is a big old flop on the pan, I think it is important for it to have come out and, gone right in front of the firing squad. That helps to actually...
Absolutely.
That helps to, forward development and, gauge interest on products and stuff like that. So I do think that cloud gaming will become like a slice of the pie in the future. And for Nintendo Switch in particular, I'm thinking more about like the Switch 2 or whatever it might be.
Oh, yeah.
If they focus on building, and this is where I get very hazy because I don't know anything about development or building, PCs or just anything electronic like that. If they focus on building an architecture that is really conducive to streaming, and then they could do like cloud versions of games, so that way they wouldn't have to miss out on some of the bigger, crazier things, and it could still be an option. The problem there, though, is like you have to make sure it is a appropriate price, because a lot of those bigger games, like say Resident Evil 7, that is $20 on the PlayStation Store, oftentimes going on sale for $10. So initially, if it were to come out on the Switch around the same time, like just hypothetically, say these games come out on like the PS4 and the Switch, and it's the cloud version on the Switch, it's regular on the PS4. If it initially comes out and it's a rental price of say $15 or something like that, that could be sort of understood, but then eventually it needs to go down to like a couple bucks or whatever, and then I could see myself totally, like, I wouldn't do $15 if I could get the full game, but I could see myself being like, oh shit, like it's only $3 to rent this game for a whole weekend or whatever it is. Like, I don't remember, just because I haven't looked into it, what the pricing structure is, if it's like they charge you per hours or give you a certain date or whatever it is, or just access to it in general, just the cloud version. It needs to be very competitively priced, because you aren't getting a game that you can play anytime you want, or you aren't getting a game at least that you can't play without a internet connection. Having cloud gaming is a drawback compared to having the actual disc or having the actual download on your system. So they need to make that competitive, otherwise it won't be successful. Like, look at Stadia, where you have to do the subscription fee and you have to buy the games and then you stream them, and it's like, no, it should just be the subscription fee, just like a Netflix or a whatever.
Well, and on that note, if you think about what is required for actually putting all of these pieces together, I mean, the entire premise and the entire appeal of cloud gaming is that you can play this anywhere. You can play it on your phone, you can play it on a computer, you can play it on your Google TV, for God's sakes. The idea that all of the hardware, all of that necessary equipment is being run behind the scenes and all you need is a screen as a portal of access, that is an amazing idea.
Yeah, I think eventually we will get there.
Yeah, I honestly think that the idea of cloud gaming right now is basically the modern day Virtual Boy. And I know it's a very weird analogy to say, but I feel like the Virtual Boy was very ahead of its time, and it wasn't marketed properly, and the technology wasn't there to support the idea of what it is. We have VR gaming now that is much more widely accepted, as a gaming media format than what it was back then, where it was this very niche thing. I can see gaming 15 years down the line or so move into a format where it's all a matter of what type of cloud gaming system do you want. I do believe that it is the quote-unquote future of gaming. But because it is the future, it is not there now. The internet is not strong enough. The Wi-Fi that would be necessary for it is not strong enough.
In most major markets, yeah.
In most major markets. We're starting to get there, but there's also a lot of politics that are kind of running in the background.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, to prevent this kind of thing from really becoming a strong contender.
Right. There's, like, going into businesses and business politics, there is a monopoly, just speaking at least for the United States, there's a monopoly on that, and they keep people throttled, basically, and they charge really high prices for...
when they really don't need to.
Right,
I mean,
right.
We're running off of internet connections that are literally a couple of decades old. So...
eventually, I think it'll get there, but the problem is that it's always going to be, like, muddied in money waters. Money waters?
Which, now, with that being said, let's just talk about the idea of cloud games on the Switch. Like, I think it would be cool. I think it would be able to bypass a lot of the restrictions and the stigma that people have that, oh, if you just want a kid game or not a high-end, graphically intense game, you're not going to be able to play that on the Switch.
Yeah.
Because if you can have something in the background that's doing all the horsepower, you're good.
But, like, the thing, though, with the Switch is, like, what is the advantage of the Switch over another console? It's portable, and you can take it wherever, and you can put it into your TV as well. So when you think about, like, just Resident Evil 7, for example, why would anybody want to play the worst version of that? You know what I mean? The answer, my answer at least, would be because it's cheap.
And because of the Nintendo Labo.
If there's Labo support with Resident Evil 7, sure, I'll try it. But the point is that it needs to be cheap. Like, it can't be even the same price, because otherwise, no, I'll just buy a download or a disc, and it'll look better, and it'll be not running with any input lag or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's kind of the whole argument that we had when they were doing the re-releases for Resident Evil. Like, why would I buy Resident Evil 4 for the Nintendo Switch for $40 or something?
I was 30 when it launched.
$30 when it's on sale for $15 over on the PS4, a system that...
Yeah.
Like, the pricing structure is always weird.
You know what's funny, though? Like, even talking about that, is that the Resident Evil games... They launched 4, 5, and 6 on the Switch at $30, which was $10 higher than they launched them on the other consoles back then. They dropped that price now. They're all $20 flat, and then sometimes they go on sale for like $15. So just all over the map, really.
Man.
But anyway, getting back to Coswell's question, as long as the architecture is there for games to be efficiently streamed on that system, then I think that it's a viable option, but it must be super cheap.
I honestly think that Nintendo has they're kind of looking at this the wrong way. They don't need to be looking at current games to be able to run it as cloud gaming. If they want to do some sort of a subscription service, they should really be looking at their backlog for their Super Nintendo, their Game Boy Advance games, N64 games.
And streaming those?
Yeah.
Why?
Just because they have so much of a catalog to support whatever kind of business model that they want to come out with.
But what's the advantage of streaming that over downloading 1 megabyte?
I mean, that's entirely fair.
Like, no,
but
I mean, I genuinely mean that. Like, what is the benefit of streaming Super Nintendo games to your Nintendo Switch as opposed to downloading those tiny little files?
I'm thinking of it as an expansion to their Nintendo Online format. So where they have right now, where if you have Nintendo Online, you get all of the Super Nintendo games and the NES games that they've come out with. the whole reason that it's joked about, Netflix or whatever they call it. So have something where we're going to go ahead and stream the games to you. We're going to do it on these smaller games so we can deal with the current limitations of the internet, and you still have a huge backlog to be able to play off of.
But what is the benefit of streaming those as opposed to getting those just downloaded straight to your console? Like, for example, with your console, you can just take that anywhere. You don't need an internet connection to play your Super Nintendo and your NES games. If they were streaming, you would need an internet connection.
No. So I'm saying that the benefit to all of that is the fact that they can charge it as one package as opposed to having to individually make sure that each of these games are working on a download-only basis for games that they might not be able to, they might not even sell a whole lot of copies of.
You're talking about old Super Nintendo and old NES games, right?
Yes.
But
and maybe even expanding that out. I'm not necessarily looking at the benefit of it being streamed directly because of the hardware limitations.
But I'm trying to find what you're talking about why it would be a benefit to stream those games, Galen. But the point is that when you're subscribed to the Nintendo Online service, they have an app that you can download and that downloads the physical games, it downloads the games to your data. It's actually there as opposed to it being streaming. So what would be, instead of that app being what it is now and then it's just streaming only, what is the benefit there?
The benefit is more of a being able to take that backlog that's there and making it a rotating cycle. Not the physical thing of I'm just going to let you download this and put it on there. Make it so that you have access to it and use that streaming aspect of the service to be able to control what is currently on the system.
I'm so confused. But then I think the point that you're bringing up is like just have them all available at once versus have them available piece by piece. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Then that's not so much like a issue of streaming versus having it on the console. That's more of their release schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I think switch to make it a streaming architecture in there. Talk with companies and figure out what they need. Realize, where is modern streaming going, and really try and be at the forefront of that. And that could be one of the aspects of your Switch too.
Mm-hmm. Electric Switchaloo?
I would love if that's what the marketing was. Do it. Coswell, thank you so much for writing into us. If you have more topics for discussion, more food for thought, more food for talk, send us an email, nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
That email one more time is nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
So what's coming up, what's coming out on nintendoeverything.com, 24/7 news. We also have translations, and we have reviews, and we have a bunch of other junk coming out. Just so much stuff. Come on in, the water's fine. nintendoeverything.com. Follow us on Twitter @nineverything, and also our YouTube, youtube.com/nineverything. Our lovely staff member Bryce is putting out some lovely, said lovely twice, discussion videos from time to time, so do check out our YouTube. Galen, where do people check you out on the internet?
You guys can check me out on the internet at Twitter, and that Twitter handle is @Mobius087. And I highly encourage, reaching out to me and
making sure he's okay.
Making sure that I'm okay. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I sent out 2 Twitter polls recently. First was, I was curious as to, for our adventure log, would you guys prefer to hear more recent games, older games, or just didn't really care one way or the other? Most people didn't care, but there is a small subsect that would prefer newer games, so I'm definitely keeping that in mind.
Give us your feedback.
Yeah. The other one that I threw out was, do you guys prefer Nintendo-only content versus content from other platforms, or just didn't care? And honestly, I was surprised to hear that some people prefer to hear stuff from other content versus Nintendo. But most people thought just games were games. So
That's excellent. You can also send feedback my way. Yell at me at Oni_Dino on Twitter.
Twitter.
Galen, what have we been Galen, what have we learned this episode?
I have learned that both of our brains are melting currently.
Speak for yourself.
I would, but like you, I no longer have the ability to speak.
Are you the person that Gwen Stefani was singing about?
What?
Don't speak? I know just what you're thinking. So please stop explaining. Don't tell me, cause it hurts!
Wow. You know what? Turn of the era comment. That's what you were into. All right, cool.
Well, lovely listeners, stay tuned for us next week. Stay tuned for this tragic kingdom that is a podcast.
Yeah. No doubt.
For
I killed
everything
him.
Nintendo.
I broke you. Stay tuned to Nintendo Everything.
Stay walking in the spiderwebs, everybody.
I'm just a girl. I don't know their songs anymore.
Sight Star, Marcus D, Elevation, peace. Life is like a man born blind buying jewelry, finding the best things, singing the tomfoolery, knowing the best piece by the feel of the texture, feeling if the love radiates from the mess up. It's the flaws that tell us what's going on, makes us who we are from vagabond to swarm. Yes, we are alone, but together we are strong. So hold me by the arm, together we form God. Filling in the gaps and cracks with ambiance, with trepidation, major, maybe we belong. Separated apart, but then where do we start? Unless we write the checks and pay off the cost. Yes, I am Aurelian, so take me to the stars. Yes, I am a novelist to a monument's law. Hard bringing a change that will raise the alarm. Strange alien song that's in tune with the cause. And we go, and we go, and we go, and we go. Stand on two, what we gon' do? A higher purpose search just got a way through. A light in the attic, somebody lighting the fuse. Please don't be confused, cause up we gonna move.
冷めてしまってもいつも